Can you tell us a few words from Madras Bhasha and the uh, some funny story, especially the Krishna oil? I really did want you to talk about the Krishna oil.
So kerosene oil came in the early.
So we're just gonna take a small break and do a rapid fire. Your favorite beach? So this is a tricky one. Your favorite Sabha canteen? So what is a common complaint that you've heard about Chennaites? How important do you think that these people also learn about the history of this art form?
Not really necessary, in my opinion.
Can you tell us a few words from Madras Bhasha and the some funny story, especially the Krishna oil? I really did want you to talk about the Krishna oil.
Okay, so kerosene oil came in the early 20th century to the city, and it was being marketed by the company that was Best and Company in those days. And they brought about this concept of carrying it in a push cart with a drum mounted on it. And all of us who grew up in the 1960s, particularly, we would all remember the man coming and shouting Krishna oil, Krishna oil, because they added a dye to it to check tampering, or rather to check tampering with it, basically. That was by Best and Company. So because it was blue in color, it became Krishna oil. And much later, it seems that when after Best and Company had died out and oil was nationalized and it was being sold by Indian Oil and Bharat Petroleum and all that, they again in the 1990s, apparently they added a blue dye to kerosene oil to check tampering once again. So blue color and kerosene oil appear to have had a long history. And so Krishna oil is a very interesting name that we have created for a very dull chemical product.
It's actually a very funny story. When I read it first time, I was actually rolling on the floor laughing about it. You know, people see a blue color and they say it's Krishna oil. So it's actually a very cute story, I would say. So we're just going to take a small break and do a rapid fire before resuming more conversations on the cultural aspects of Chennai. Ready? Okay. What's your favorite monument or building in Chennai?
The Kapalishwara temple.
Your favorite beach?
Well, it's not in Chennai, so I'm not going to say it.
But what's your favorite beach in Chennai?
Well, Chennai, is just the Marina Beach. The others are, they are very minor strips of sand, no matter how local people claim it to be. But of late, my favorite beach has been a place called Alamparai, which is just around 40 kilometers before Pondicherry. So that is my favorite beach.
Oh, okay. What's your favorite street food?
I grew up in Calcutta and Delhi. So my favorite street food again is not from here, but it is chaat. So it's not from here.
Okay. Your favorite
I'm a very late entrant to Chennai. I came only in 1993. So
okay.
Yeah.
But that's still a long time. I thought you would have gotten accustomed to the idlis and vadais and
home food. Idli, vada and all is home food. You don't go to the street for that. But street food, I would say Chennai scores very badly on street food. If you ask me, Madurai is really the capital for Tamil street food. There can be no other city other than Madurai. Oh, the quality of the idlis, the quality of the paniyarams, there's something else. It's to die for. And I am told by the meat eaters that it is equally good for non-vegetarian as well. And that's not something that I am aware of. But I go up to eggs, and I like their mutta paniyaram, their mutta dosa, everything.
Oh.
Madurai when it comes to street food. Chennai is a very, very poor cousin. Chennai has no street food, frankly. What little street food Chennai has is all Burma, Marwadi, Gujarati. I think the Tamil in Chennai did not think much of creating street food on their own.
Actually, on that note, I used to visit a lot of stalls in Veperi for my favorite chaat. That's my favorite chaat haunt. It's amazing.
Chaat is not Tamil. So, where is the question?
All right. So this is a tricky one. Your favorite Sabha canteen?
Narthagana Sabha. As long as Mr. Jnanambika Jayaraman was catering to it, and now that he is no more, and it was not the same after he passed away, I would prefer to live in the memory of that. That was my favorite canteen.
Oh, okay. Your favorite statue?
Good one. Triumph of Labour.
Why?
Because of the very artistic way in which it is made. It's a real work of art. It is not a flat depiction of a person. Something that, the colonials have given us, this thing about a king on a horse, one woman or a man with a sword, somebody with a flag. In a distance, everybody looks the same, frankly, to you. The Gandhi statue and the Triumph of Labour are real works of art because of the man who created them, D.P. Roy Chowdhury. And he was a great artist, and the sense of proportion and the way of the movement, the fluidity of the statue, I would say that these two are a class apart. In that, the Triumph of Labour is even better than anything else.
Sure. Okay, a place or monument in Chennai that you think deserves more attention?
The University Senate House. It is very, I don't know if you recognize this man, but your children should know him, and that's why I'm showing him. This is Mr. S. Muttaya, who is the father of the modern history and heritage movement of Chennai. He was my guru. He taught me much of what I know about the history and heritage of this city, and I had the privilege of working very closely with him for more than 20 years, till he passed away 2 years ago at the age of 90. Mr. Muttaya worked very hard for the restoration of the University Senate House. It is a stunning example of the Indo-Saracenic style of architecture, which the British, kind of conceptualized and gave it form by taking elements of Islamic architecture, Hindu architecture, Christian church architecture, and blending it and creating an empire style, basically. It evolved from here. It evolved from the Chepauk Palace in near the beach. And then its finest form was the University Senate House. After that, it went all over. Wherever the British Empire went, they built only in the Indo-Saracenic style, including New Delhi, including the Venkatappa Art Gallery, the Atara Kacheri, the Seshadri Iyer Memorial in Cubbon Park. Everything is Indo-Saracenic. Wherever the British went, they built in that style. There is no denying it. So this University Senate House is, Mr. Muttaya campaigned so hard for it. And then, people donated money. 11 crores was spent on its restoration in 2007. And then at the end of it, they just locked it once again. And it's not open to the public. It's being used for storing papers, and it's being kept in a bad condition, frankly, at the end of the day. So I wish they would open it up and they would make it better.
A criticism about Chennai that made you smirk?
Well, one is that I wish Chennai could be a lot cleaner. And I smirk because I believe totally in that criticism. I'm not saying that I disagree with it. I'm just smiling because I feel that, yes, these people are right, whoever is saying it. Chennai is, I would say Bangalore is a lot cleaner. I would say Trichy is a lot cleaner. Trichy is a lot cleaner. Can you believe it? Trichy is a town. Chennai is a city, supposedly the capital of Tamil Nadu, and we should set an example and all that. Oh, filth that you see, it's impossible. And the mechanism for improving it also doesn't exist. So, while we are all very comfortable talking about segregation of waste at home, and we do it. I mean, we all practice segregation of waste. But what happens if the collection of the waste is non-segregated? So how does it help at the end of the day? You remember I mentioned to you that, when we restore heritage and, there's no question of pedestrianization because you've got to take all stakeholders and all that. That's fine. But that is no excuse for a filthy town. Acceptance of everybody is one thing, but then everybody needs to be committed to being clean and to maintaining. But that's a fundamental human responsibility. Unfortunately, in today's world, everybody wants rights. They don't want responsibility. So I want the freedom to be driving through this road. I want the freedom to keep a shop here, but I don't want the responsibility of keeping my place clean. So this is the sad situation. So Chennai, I would say, is incredibly filthy, and I don't mind going on record saying this. And when I say incredibly filthy, it is not as filthy as some towns that I know of in North India, but I will say that it is very high up on the filth grade, and I think it really needs to improve.
Yeah, the point is we can definitely do better.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So, what is a common complaint that you've heard about Chennai?
The weather. The weather is bad. There are 3 seasons, as you know. You have hot, then you've got hotter, and you've got hottest. Then you've got hell. Hell comes 2 or 3 times in the year. Hell is sometime in May, June. Okay. Then hell is what we are going through now, which is this October, November cusp, just before the rains hit us. See, as you know, that we've got a monsoon that doesn't come with the rest of the country. We have a monsoon that's only in November, December. And if it doesn't come, then we are stuck with this hell weather for the next 2 months. If hopefully it will rain and it will improve. So Chennai is a major challenge in terms of the weather, because there is no there are people who imagine that Chennai has a winter. So as you know, by October you will find people with earmuffs and shawls and mufflers and all, pretending that it is cold. So it's nowhere near even cool. So it's some strange thing. And you remember, in Tamil there is no word for ice. The only word we have is pani. Pani is actually dew. That's the coolest that you can get. Beyond that, you don't get anything else. So there's nothing that you can do about it. Sometimes I wonder, why did the British select this spot? You know, it didn't have a natural harbor. The weather was bad right through the year, but they still did it. And so even something like a heritage walk becomes a very big challenge in this city, because people sweat buckets. So what I do is that now I compulsorily say, I don't care how important you are, but the heritage walk will begin at 6 in the morning. It will get over at 8. And by 5:45, people have to assemble. Otherwise, the walk starts. Then you join whenever you can. But after 8 o'clock, no heritage activity. And I don't do it in the evening, because the traffic noises are so much that it's impossible. So the weather, you've got to continuously be ahead of the weather here. It's bad.
Yeah, that's definitely the common complaint I've heard also about Chennai. One movie that you think has brought out the best of Chennai?
Unfortunately, I'm not much of a movie goer. My day is very tightly packed with my activities. So I'm not even much of a television watcher, and I'm not even much of an internet surfer, for that matter. So, and as you know, my WhatsApp status is don't send me any forwards, otherwise you'll be blocked. So I have to keep it like this, otherwise my time will get shot to pieces. I am not very sure. I don't think I can give you a qualified answer on this one. But yes, there are many films which I have seen where the city is shown as a very nice background, particularly in songs, in situations and all that. That is there. But, one of the movies that I really thought the background of an area rather than the city itself came out was Pammal Ke Samandam of Kamal Hassan, where that Royapuram Tandayarpete side of life was very, the language that they speak there. That I thought came out very well in that film.
That had a lot of Madras Bhasha, for sure.
Of course, very much. I mean, many of Kamal's movies have had a lot of Madras Bhasha. In this one, more so. But if you ask me, like for instance, I can tell you offhand of films that say depict the Ramanathapuram, the Tevar culture, for instance, Tevar Magan. Or, there are films that depict the Madurai culture in a very big way. Like even this Surarai Potru, which came out recently, is a very Madurai film. Similarly, in Hindi, you have wonderful films that depict the Lucknow culture. There are 4 or 5 films. Similarly, many Bengali films have made a hero out of the city. or even just to give one example, Satyajit Ray's Mahanagar.
Yes.
Calcutta is really the back. There are 3 films of Ray which make Calcutta the hero: Jana, Aranya, Mahanagar, and one more which I forget. I've seen most of them. Similarly, there are many films which make Bombay the central character, Garonda, for that whole housing shortage issue and how it transforms people's lives. I can't say that I have, but I'm not the best authority on that. Yeah.
Okay. One thing that you think Chennaites should be very, very proud of about the city?
Yes, that is the secular fabric of this city. People dismiss it as a very conservative city, but I would say, on the other hand, that it has been a phenomenally accepting city of multiple religions, multiple religious practices, and a feeling of coexistence with everybody. So we have never had a history of rioting between religions in the last 250 years. And that, I would say, has been a huge plus for this city. So you've got a temple, which is like the Patsati temple. Next to it, you've got the big mosque. There are people who've been trying to create trouble, but they haven't succeeded. And hopefully they will never succeed. So that, I would say, is a very important part of the city, and I'm very proud of it myself. And one reason that I always feel for that is that till around a few years ago, religion was a very private thing. You practiced your religion in your house, and then you had a public life where you didn't talk about it. So there was no scope for conflict. Today, it's all open, out in the open. Mine is the best. My father is better than your father. How can there be an answer to this?
Yeah, you're right. You very, very beautifully said that, because as I said, I grew up in Mylapore, and there's one street in Mylapore called the Mosque Street.
Absolutely.
On one end is the Hanuman temple, which is a very orthodox, Orthodox Brahmin temple.
Yes.
And on the other end of it's a very small street. It's not even like a big road. It's a very small street of probably 200, 300 meters. And then the other end had a mosque, which would have, the speakers,
prayer,
the namaz
going on.
And right in the middle was a very small Amman temple.
See,
I grew up in that.
In Rayapuram, which is such a Christian bastion, you have got in the same street, you have an Amman temple, a Parsi fire temple, a church, and a mosque. All 4 of them standing next to each other in Rayapuram. So, that is how we have lived. And that is how in India, you have to coexist if you want to survive. You have to accept that the other person has a different point of view. You are never going to be able to make him think that your view is the best. You have to give that freedom. We are not a mono-religion or a monotheistic society. So, I come from a very orthodox, I would say a very devout Hindu family. So, but, when my elder son, as a baby, used to get ill, and where we would take him? My wife was a firm believer. In Kacheri Road, there was a mosque. Early in the morning, these Maulvis will finish their prayer and they'll come out. And at that time, you'll find a lot of Hindu mothers holding babies waiting. He'll come and do bussu, bussu, bussu. He'll blow on the baby. And he'll say, yeah, your child will be all right. And sure enough, after 2 days, the fever will go away. And so I used to call my son Habibullah for a long time, just because he used to be taken to that mosque. But that is how we grew up. We were so happy accepting all these things.
Absolutely. I very, very vividly remember, I still have very, very close friends who are from different faiths, but that never prohibited the friendship or the concept of who we pray to or what we pray. Never,
That's
came
our
about.
Private thing, right? So, I have a warehouse keeper in my office, a young chap. Every year, he'll come during the Arvati Mover festival of the Kapalishwara temple and say, I'm collecting money because I'm going to distribute biscuits. So we'll all give him money. And every Friday at the warehouse, he will conduct one puja, waving the camphor, waving the coconut, one pumpkin. His name is Joseph. The whole thing. I asked him, Joseph, then he'll say, na biscuit sir. So he thinks that that is his, that's how he wants to be a participant in the whole thing. And then I thought to myself, why are you with your crooked thought coming and interfering in that simple, happy man going and distributing biscuits?
Exactly. That is 100% true. I definitely take pride in that fact about Chennai, and that's something that I keep talking to my friends from foreign lands about. How Chennai is so unique in that sense.
Totally.
Yeah. So let's move to the other facet of you, Carnatic music. Want to ask, I know you come across so many budding musicians today, and they are, fantastic in their rendition and all that. But do you think, or how important do you think that these people also learn about the history of this art form?
Not really necessary, in my opinion. It is enough if they learn how to perform very well, and to learn and to respect the lyrical aspect of the music. Unlike the Hindustani tradition, we come from a very rigid compositional base. So the composition forms a very important part of our music. So it is enough if they, first of all, it's the performance that really matters. And secondly, it is the respect to the compositional side of it that comes next. I would not say that the history of Carnatic music is really all that important. It's more of an academic interest. And
but when you say lyrics, doesn't that also come into play? Like the history also comes into play, right? Like for example, if I'm singing a Muthuswami Dikshitar Snava Varnam, knowing about the Tiruvarur, knowing about the Kamalambal, what he was, the kind of person he was, don't you think that adds?
It helps, but it is not a must. If you look at it, you just take, say, 40 years ago or 50 years ago or 60 years ago, the awareness of who Dikshitar was a lot less than the awareness today. Today, we know a lot more about Muthuswami Dikshitar as compared to what people then knew. Because there's been a lot of analysis and detailed writing about his life and things like that. If you look at Tyagaraja, for that matter, today there is a more rationalist view of Tyagaraja as compared to what it was at 50 years ago, when there was a lot of bhakti. And there was a lot of I, for instance, refuse to believe that he revived a dead man and things like that. So, or that his idols were found in the river bed after his brother threw them into the river. I don't believe in any of those stories. But you can't say that the music, I would say the music was far better, with even less awareness. And they did not debate so much on the theory of music. They did not remain strict adherence to the Arohana and Avarohana and, where in the Kakali Nishada, all these things. I would say that today we've got too much into the background of it, and we are giving less importance to the freedom of expression of the artist. So that, I would say, actually too much of knowledge on that side is a deterrent. A good base and then the freedom to innovate is what we really need.
Wow. So let's talk about these Margari concerts. We are just about a month and a half away from Margari, and the most happening season, and one of the best months to be in Chennai because of the weather. So when and where did this Margari concert start? What, can we trace it back?
Obviously, worship of Shiva and Vishnu in the month of Margari is a very ancient concept because of the Tirupavai and the Tiruvembavai and the Tirupalli. Even at that time, Margari Neeraduvar, Male Manivanna, Margari Neeraduvar. So, you know that Margari was very special. And in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says that among the months, I am the month of Margari. The Dhanur Masa. So, therefore, you realize that it was very special. And you also realize from these versifiers that they were propitiating the Lord through music at that time. And so, Margari as a concept is very ancient. What is interesting is that Margari was just a part of a year in the 19th century Madras. So, we had concerts right through the year. You would have them during Ramanavami, you would have them during Gokulashtami, you would have it during Navaratri. When an era when the scope for public entertainment was a lot less, Carnatic music was playing a huge role, and bhajans were playing a huge role. Harikatha was playing a huge role. So that was all that there was to it. And you had Veedi Bhajane. So that is, even in the Kapalishwara temple, we know that from the 19th century, people have been doing Veedi Bhajane. So in the month of Margazhi, they would all congregate and they would start singing early in the morning. Even today, in my opinion, that is the heart of Margazhi. To go at 5 o'clock in the morning when it is a little cool and it is very dark in the month of Margazhi because the sun rises much later. And you find all these people in waves, they will come out of the Kapalishwara temple in batches, some with harmonium, some with a tambura. Some will only be reciting, they won't even be singing. But just following them and walking along is just fantastic. It's one of the most moving experiences possible. So that is really the heart of Margazhi. Then in 1927, you have the All India Congress session. The Congress party, as at that time fighting for freedom, was meeting in every city of India at various times of the year. And wherever it meant, it had a cultural event in parallel for the entertainment of the delegates in the evenings. So in 1926 or so, it had happened in Lucknow. And then in 1927, when it was going to happen in Madras, the Satyamurthy was he was a great freedom fighter, and he was also a man of the arts. He was a secretary, he was a drama artist, he was a lawyer, he could sing very well, and he had a number of friends among Carnatic musicians. And he decided to organize a music festival in parallel with the All India Congress session. And so they, from December 24th to December 31st, that is when, as you said, this is the only time of the year when the weather is good over here. Even then, lots of conferences used to happen in Madras in that week between Christmas and New Year, because the high courts would be closed, the government would be largely shut, schools would be closed. So you had, in 1927, for instance, I have counted, there were 15 different conferences happening in the city at the same time. One of them was the All India Music Conference that was happening in parallel with the All India Congress session. And they had an exhibition of musical artifacts. They charged tickets for the music performances that were happening. They made some money. With that money, they said that they would establish a music academy. And in 1928, they decided that every year the music academy would conduct would showcase what it felt was the right way to perform Carnatic music between December 24th and December 31st. So that really marks the beginning of the December Music Festival. So in 1928, you have the first such performance. Thereafter, it has continued. Then other organizations like the Indian Fine Arts Society, the Tamil Isai Sangam, they all, these three were really the organizers of the December Music Festival till the 1970s. No other sabhas were really a part of it. You had the Music Academy, you had the Indian Fine Arts Society and the Tamil Isai Sangam. All other sabhas would conduct their festivals at various times of the year, music series. But these three would conduct. Suddenly in the 1980s, this really burgeoned, and a lot of small sabhas decided, even the older sabhas, they decided that December is when we all want to be part of the music festival. And that is how it caught on. The arrival of the NRI from the 1980s and the 1990s has been a very major contributor to the success of the festival, because they were very starved for music in an era when there was no recording, there was not recording, when there was no YouTube. Artists were not traveling in such large numbers to the United States. And so and really, if you look at it, NRI started coming back to India only from the 1980s onwards. Prior to that, they would come once in 10 years or something, 5 years. Travel was not all that easy prior to that, and it's only later. So when they started coming in, there was a huge fillip. And at the same time, young musicians began to take center stage. So if you look at Carnatic music, those who sang in 1927 were still singing in 1960s. And then they all died. And then you had a set of artists who had already grown old, waiting for that older lot to go. They did not have a great career. And then suddenly you had this young lot that came in, and they are continuing to perform, which means that the next wave is finding it difficult to get a toehold. So it's the same trend is repeating itself. But that young lot that came in the 1980s and 90s, they created a big wave, exciting young music that was coming in. And that created a big, boost for Carnatic music. And then people began coming in large numbers. Today, we claim on paper that there are 60 organizations that put up around 2,000 music and dance performances. I don't believe in that. In my opinion, it's around 20 organizations and probably around 500 to 600 music.
That's still a big number.
That's still a big number, particularly because it's entirely because of private initiatives. There is no government support. Yes, if you ask me about the audiences, I will say that not more than 20,000 people following from Sabha to Sabha to Sabha. So this question about millions and large, all bull. So, we have around 10,000 to 15,000 people. The same faces you will see again and again and again in all the Sabhas. So it's a very minuscule audience, but it's a classical art. In any classical art, you will only have a minuscule audience.
Correct.
You go to Vienna, it's not as though 51 million people are listening to the Philharmonic Orchestra. It's only 200, 250 people. It's a classical art. We have to accept it. And that is all that we will get.
Yeah.
But it's great.
And I always say Carnatic music is also, it's almost like a wine that it's an acquired taste as well.
We may sound very snobbish and people will say that you need to popularize it. Very well. Then those who say that they needed to popularize it ought to be popularizing it in the way in which it ought to be sung. And thereafter, let more people come in. And if they come in, well and good. But it has not really shown that it has the capability of doing that. It remains a very restricted art form with few people. And all classical arts.
It has survived, right? And it will continue to survive.
Of course. And the way it has taken to technology, it's amazing. I think there requires a study there on from the recording era, which is 1900 onwards. Carnatic music has been in complete cahoots with the evolving technology. So you take films, musicians were singing in films. You take artificial amplification, there was no question. Nobody said, I don't want a mic. They just took to the mic. And they began singing with a mic, and with rotten amplification, they produced some wonderful music. And then afterwards, when the cassette era came, they were recording on cassettes. Radio, they were doing it on radio. Doordarshan, fine. And then, when CDs came, CDs, YouTube, fantastic. Virtual concerts, fine. Nobody is giving up. They are happily going along with the technology, hand in glove. They are not saying we get outmoded. They are keeping in pace. And even the elderly musicians are very comfortable. That's wonderful, in my opinion. It will survive. It will do very well.
Absolutely. And you actually echoed your best friend's thoughts as well. I remember hearing Mr. Sanjay Subramanian say the same thing when, he was asked a similar question in one of the Hindu Lit Fests a few years ago. And he said the same thing. Like, imagine how a classical art form has adapted over the years. And he gave very similar examples. And he said, now you tell me what makes, or why should I believe that it's not going to survive? And he threw it back at the interviewer. And that was one of the classic replies that I've seen.
All of us are fringe players in the light of the Tevarams, the Tiruvachakams, the compositions of Tyagaraja, Purandaradasa, Annamacharya, Dikshita, Shama Shastri, Papanasam Sivan. They will survive by thousands of years. It is like the compositions of Sahir Ludhianvi, Majroo Sultanpuri, Naushad's music, or S.D. Burman, or R.D. Burman, or they'll all survive. We'll be gone. There's no doubt about it. We are all fringe players in the face of those immortals. So they don't need us. They'll just happily coast along. They must be laughing at us, Why are these chaps worried about our work?
Oh my God, the thought of that is making me crack up. So, thank you for that. And we are at the fag end of our interview. Couple of questions.
I've so enjoyed this interaction with you. It's been fabulous. Thank you very much. I'm saying it right up front, even though we've not come to the end of it.
Sure, thanks. Just one last question. So I know you conduct heritage walks, and you said that yourself. If you were to conduct this heritage walk exclusively for children, what is it that you would focus on? One. And what are some of the things, other than, of course, keeping our city clean? What is something that you would tell our children of today that they should know about the place that they are living in and the people they are living?
Yeah. So I have done walks for children. And when I do walks exclusively for children, the content changes into a very visual, heavy walk. So more than the stories, I keep pointing out to them to look for this and to look for that. And then I ask them, why do they think that this is so? Just to go back to, say, Kapalishwara temple again. So if you were doing the story with adults, you would recite Samandar, or you would recite, Papanasan Sivan's composition. You would talk about the way the temple was somewhere near the sea, then it was shifted, rebuilt, etc., etc., etc. But when you do it with children, you talk to them about why do they think that there is a Gopuram? Why is the Gopuram shaped like this? What are those metal pots on top of that temple Gopuram doing? What are all those idols that are there? How often is the temple Gopuram cleaned? Can you climb up the temple Gopuram? Then when you take them inside, why is this place like that? Why is this place like this? Why is this statue here? Why are these people doing what they are doing? What are those little scribbles on the walls carved by people centuries ago? What is the story that it is telling? So you invoke their interest. And I would also say that it's not a question of what you know when you go with children. It's more a question of what they want to hear from you that would keep them entertained. And it is through the medium of entertainment that you really give them what they should learn. In a heritage walk, you're not going to leave them with an impression of a lifetime or any such thing. They'll probably carry 1 or 2 minutes of that heritage walk in their minds. But if they do that, the purpose of the heritage walk is served. And thereafter, that's all that we need to do. And 1 or 2 stories. Secondly, a feeling of pride in what we are, despite all our faults. So, there is no point in saying that we are the most supreme. But yes, we've done a lot of good as people. There's no reason to be ashamed of our past. So that is something that I think these children should learn. They should learn to celebrate. I grew up with my grandmother, my father's mother, and I was 15 when she passed away. And I think in the first 15 years of your life, your personality is more or less set. And then, of course, other people come in. You get married, then your wife influences you. In my case, yes, and in a hugely beneficial fashion. So I wouldn't be here today without all the support that she has given me. So that is there. But my grandmother, I would say, was the biggest cultural influence in my life. And the one thing that she made very clear up front, right from the time I was a child, take pride in what we are. You don't have to be ashamed of anything that you're doing. It's your culture. You're not harming anybody by your culture. You're not making somebody else poor by celebrating your culture. You're not killing anyone by celebrating your culture. Get rid of the negatives and take the positives. Every culture has got a lot of negative in it, but every culture has got a lot of positive in it. So look at the positive and celebrate the positive in a very big way, and make it joyful for everybody to. That was her lesson, absolutely. When she would tell me stories, it was such an experience. Just watching her, she would be Ravana 1 minute, next minute she would be Shurpanaka, for an audience of one person, and that was me. And I was 5, 6, 7, etc., etc. So, and she, when I used to take part in school theatricals and dramatics and all, she would say, do it for the sake of the audience. Don't think that you are on stage and you are going to do something. Do it because you want them to like and them to feel happy. So that became a very big mantra to me. So children need to experience that happiness. At the end of the day, they should go home and say, enna nadandhathu, or pramadama or uncle vandar, or ஒரு தாத்தா வந்தார். I don't know what they say now. But அப்படி ஒரு கதை சொன்னார், நாங்கெல்லாம் சிரிச்சோம். That I think is the great thing. So one is change the format to suit the children. The other is celebrate and give them a lot of happiness. That is they should be happy. If they are happy, they are less prone to trouble.
Right. Very, very beautifully said. I was like, I was very moved by what you said, because this is exactly what we are trying to do. Catch them young, just sow that seed of, pride about our culture. Just give them the information. When they grow, they will go back, find it all themselves.
Exactly. That's exactly the way. It will never leave them.
Right. And that comes from my personal experience as well. Just like you said, my grandmother was a very, very big influence in, she would take me to Terukuthu. The first time I watched a Terukuthu was at, I think 2 in the night, when in Kanchipuram. She took me, she just woke me up in the middle of the night.
Rishabha Vahanam will start at 11:30 in Kapaleshwara temple. We'll all be woken up, pushed into a rickshaw and taken for what? I mean, she could have just said, let the children sleep, right? But no.
Yeah, exactly.
I still go. When Rishabha Vahanam happens, even now I go, because I can't miss it.
Yeah.
So, and later on, I was born abroad, so I still carry a citizenship of a foreign nation. But the point is that I could have settled there, but I had made myself very clear to myself, this is where I belong in terms of culture, India, and I had to live here. And that is it. At the end of the day, I'm very happy that I made that choice.
Beautiful. We are very happy you're here, and thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing such amazing stories, some amazing thoughts and advices to our children. I really enjoyed our conversation, and I hope we have more such conversations in future shows as well. Thank you so much.
Bye.